Former Eagles tight end and Super Bowl champion Trey Burton. What's happening?
How are you, bro?
I'm doing great. I'm going to run some names by you. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes, Steve Young, Joe Montana. Yet none of those, arguably the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, did what you did. Throw the greatest play pass in Super Bowl history. When you think about that, when you think about the greatest names in the game, they never did what you did.
Yeah, I mean, I never really think of it that way. I'm glad we won. The city deserved it. So much fun. There's so many good memories from it, and it was just an unbelievable time.
What was the preparation like the week leading up to the Super Bowl as you're working on that? Because you guys were maybe going to run it in the NFC Championship game, didn't run it, right? And then you worked on it all week leading up to beating the Patriots.
Yeah, we installed it during the bye week. We were the number one overall seed, so we had the first round bye, and we put it in then, and you just never know when it's going to be called. I had an idea when we were playing Atlanta that I thought we might have ran it, and then against Minnesota as well, but I never expected to do it in the Super Bowl, obviously.
How secret do you have to be that week? And I'm sure you rehearsed it a little bit when you're in Minneapolis, but how secret do you guys have to be about that play as you're trying to just nail it down to perfection?
Well, especially when you're playing the Patriots and all their history and everything that they've gone through and done over
What history? What are
history.
you talking about?
I don't know. I've heard some things, here and there. But no, we didn't do it much in Minnesota. We might have walked it through once or twice in the ballroom, but we definitely didn't practice it in Minnesota, but we obviously did in Philly.
What was the confidence level? If you could take me back to 7 years ago, what's the confidence level when you guys are working on that play and then bam, Nick and Doug call the play? Are you nervous? Are you confident? Are you anxious? Or are you doubting the play? Where are you at mentally when you go into that?
I like to think of it as like, that pen you have in your hand. If I threw it at you, what would you do? You'd catch it. You wouldn't think about it.
I no, I would get hit.
So, oh well, you try to catch it at least. In my opinion, like I didn't really have much time to think about it. They just called the play, and next thing you know, the ball was in my hand, and Nick was wide open, so I threw it to him. There was nothing like, didn't have any chills, or I really didn't even realize how like special it was, honestly, until I got to the sideline and Selleck like grabs me with both of his hands and starts shaking me, and he's like, "Bro, you just threw a touchdown in the Super Bowl." And I kind of woke up then, but I don't know. I wasn't really in it. Like mentally, I was just doing what I was supposed to do.
It's the greatest play ever. I mean, think about that. Is it true that Nick Foles gets too much credit and all the credit should go to you?
Oh, I could care less about credit. We won. I got a ring. He has a ring. We're good.
Yeah. What do you think it would mean for the city of Philadelphia having been a part of the first and only parade? What would another parade do you think in Philadelphia be like?
Well, the fans deserve it. The best fans in the NFL. Um, I think Nick deserves it as well. I hope nothing but the best for Nick and just that whole staff. Stout on specifically on the offensive side of the ball. I know all those guys so well, and they just deserve it. That time and effort and practice and film and everything they do, to prepare these guys week in and week out. It's just so unique, and so just the work that they put in, they deserve it, and obviously the city deserves it.
Yeah, your story is pretty unique as well. We talk so much about you throwing the Philly special touchdown to beat the Patriots to win the Super Bowl in the 2017 season, but you were undrafted coming out of Florida. You get recruited as a quarterback, correct, to go
Yep.
play for Urban Meyer. When
Yep.
you're going through the Philly specials and take you back to those quarterback days where you are, even though, you're the tight end, you feel comfortable because you have that background as a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of throwing before, practices during training camp. Not like route throwing, like me throwing the ball to anybody, but just between tight ends, between quarterback tight ends, that type of stuff. So I always had confidence that I could throw the football. I just never knew that this would be the time to do it.
Yeah, and your story is just so remarkable when you're coming out of Florida to go from undrafted to Super Bowl hero. What is the range of emotions you think for yourself personally with all the hard work and all the time that you put into the career?
Well, yeah, I think it's a full spectrum. No one really sees the days that you might not be on the team the next day. The days you might get cut, the days that you don't get any reps in practice. From being a rookie, maybe one of the last guys taken from an undrafted standpoint, to being the last guy to make the team, to being the last guy to dress out. There's a bunch of lasts that I had to go through in order to make it my 7 years in the NFL. But I wouldn't change it or trade it for the world. That's what kind of made me who I am, and it made it so special.
Yeah, and Corey Clement went through that as well. And
Yep.
look, Nick Foles, he wasn't, he was drafted, but look, he was around the league a bunch. He nearly quit, gets another shot with Andy Reid in Kansas City, comes to Philadelphia and, replaces Carson Wentz. It's such an unlikely story for the three of you. When you think about just how unlikely it is for you guys to be a part of something like that, is that special to you?
I haven't really thought too much about all of that. I just, winning the whole thing, there's just so many good memories that come up from that, and so many great moments with family, with friends, with coaches, with, high school teammates, high school. There's so many positives about all of that. I don't really dwell too much on the past. But yeah, it's super unique, super special. I mean, even look at all the Pro Bowlers we had that year go down, all pros, some guys who were probably going to be in the Hall of Fame didn't play in the Super Bowl, but there were guys who stepped up, like Corey and like Foles, that were able to produce at a high level and, help the team win.
As time has passed, do you appreciate your journey even more? I don't know how much you think about that, but how much do you appreciate just because your journey into the NFL and through the NFL and the time you spent was so unlikely because it's so hard as it is, let alone for a guy that's undrafted?
Yeah, I think I started really appreciating it like as I got done with high school and seeing. I mean, my high school is still winning state championships as of last year. They've been the 4 straight. So like just like as soon as I get to college, I realize how good I had it in high school compared to the other kids. And then I leave Florida and you hear all the stories about like, oh, I wish I would have went to Florida. I wish was recruited by and so all those things. So I don't know. I think I always really appreciated every bit of the journey, honestly, a lot, so that I don't really have to dwell back on much of it. But I really do enjoy the good times, and I remember the bad times and learn from the bad times, but really do enjoy and try to focus on the good times.
Was there a dark moment that you had that you really had to get through to get to that other side? That mentally was tough. That you said to yourself, "Okay, if I can just get through this, there's something special is going to come."
Yeah, I mean, I almost transferred from Florida my sophomore year. We had a really bad situation coaching wise and didn't really gel with the guys. So I actually tried out for the baseball team and didn't make the baseball team and was going to transfer, but just basically held on. And if the transfer rules were available like they are now, back then, I might have done it, without even a second thought. But I'm really glad that I didn't. And, Florida's near and dear to my heart.
Absolutely. I want to ask you, you won a Super Bowl with Brandon Graham. Look, he's going to play in this game, and his story is incredible. I'll never forget talking to him when he thought he was going to get cut or traded. He was labeled for a long time as a possible, first round bust coming out of Michigan. And he just, when you talk about it with yourself, just sticks around, hangs around. He makes that strip sack in the Super Bowl, and now he has a chance to win another Super Bowl in what really could be his final game.
Yeah, BG is the ultimate teammate, the ultimate locker guy. He's somebody that you want to have in your corner when you're going through a tough time. I don't know if I've ever seen BG not smile, honestly. Like he's always happy. He's always loud. Him, always talking trash, obviously in a good way. He's just so much fun to be around. Him and Lane and, all those guys, they're so deserving of this opportunity. And hopefully they're able to go out on top. I'm sure that's how they want their story to end. So, wish him nothing but the best.
Is Brandon Graham the biggest trash talker you've been around, or he's certainly up?
He's definitely up there. Chauncey's up there as well. Gosh,
oh
man,
yeah,
CJ, he don't play around about that trash talk. Yeah, I mean, but BG and I always had a great relationship because I was always, for the most part, the scout team tight end. So I would be the opposing team that we were playing that week's tight end, and so him and I would line up, across from each other all the time. We'd have jokes and little signals to kind of, make fun of the day and make it a good practice.
You have to be thrilled for him to be in this situation. I mean, even he thought he had everyone did, a season-ending injury in LA against the Rams, and then here we are, Super Bowl, and he if he could do something in this game, it's just going to be incredible.
BG, man, there's no way he's not going to be on that field. He's going to do everything, and I'm sure he has done everything possible to be out there. And he's such a addition, even if he doesn't play, 40, 50 snaps, just him and his presence out there and his leadership with, some of the younger guys. It's just, you can't really put a price value on that.
Yeah, and obviously in this game, there's kind of among the storylines is Carson Wentz backing up Patrick Mahomes. And, Carson said this week that he wishes things turned out differently, but, that's in the past. What do you think Carson emotionally is going through this week, seeing the Eagles on the other side back in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I'm sure he's going through a lot, but knowing Carson, he's doing the best he can to help, Patrick prepare, help that defense because he's running the scout team for, he's basically playing Jalen Hurts for the most part. So just doing the best he can to help that defense be prepared for Philly. Carson's, one of the ultimate teammates as well in the sense of like he does his job. He's going to do his job really well to the best of his ability. And I'm sure he has a great niche, over there in Kansas City. It's hard not to like, and be amazed at what Andy Reid's done over there in Kansas City. As many people, I see people every single day, I hope the Chiefs lose, not necessarily because they like the Eagles, just because they don't want the Chiefs to win. But man, at some point we got to give these guys the props, for what they've been able to overcome and just, the level that they've been able to play at year after year with, Mahomes and all those guys. It just shows, how great of a coach Andy Reid is.
Yeah, it is amazing because Andy gets a start in Philadelphia, and this is before your time, but there was so much frustration
Yeah.
over Andy unable to win the big one and time management, clock issues, and they just could not really get over the hump. And they get to that one Super Bowl against the Patriots in Jacksonville, and they just can't do it. And, his time, kind of came to an end here, and it just felt like for both sides, time for him to move on. And then here he goes. And if he wasn't already a great coach in Philadelphia, but what he has done has really cemented himself as, one of the top 2 or 3 or 4 coaches ever to be in this game. It's just an amazing story.
It's funny, man, because I don't know if I've told many people this story, but when I was a free agent after the Super Bowl, I was a free agent, and I remember getting my agent called me and was like, "Hey, you're gonna get a phone call from a Kansas City number. Answer it." And so I answer it, and it was a FaceTime, and it was Andy Reid, and he's FaceTiming me. And this was at the time when I believe this was the year that they were letting Alex Smith go, or they traded him. I forgot what ended up happening with him. But and so we have this conversation. He's talking about this Mahomes kid, which I knew he hadn't played much because Alex Smith was the guy for a long time there. And so I hang up the phone and I call my agent back and I'm like, bro, what are we doing? Like, they don't even have a quarterback. They're getting rid of this guy, this unbelievable quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, probably top 10 at the time. And he's talking about this Mahomes kid. And he goes, Trey, he thinks this kid is going to be better than Brett Favre. And I said, dude, there's no way you can sit here and tell me that. The guy hasn't even taken a snap, really, a meaningful snap in the NFL. But it just shows to his talent evaluation. Like, he knows, obviously, his stuff. He's been doing it forever. And so after that, I mean, I already had a ton of respect for him just because my family's from Philly and following Philly from afar, in Florida. But after that, man, you can never doubt the guy. You can never bet against him.
Do you wish you signed with the Chiefs? I don't know if there was an offer, but I don't know what really transpired there. But do you wish you played for them after your time was up in Philadelphia?
No. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm happy with the way everything turned out. But just the fact that he had like the foreknowledge of, Mahomes being able to be that guy and be better than Favre, back 10, 15 years ago, if someone said they were better than Brett Favre, you'd be like, especially if they'd never played before, or meaningful snaps, and at least you'd laugh in their face. But it just shows how good of a coach he is.
Were you shocked? I mean, what do you tell Andy Reid in that moment?
We were just talking, just getting to know each other,
Yeah.
Just having conversations, what they're looking for, what they were envisioning, those type of things. But I don't know, I was just listening to him. I mean, not too often you get a FaceTime from Andy Reid, so just trying to enjoy that time.
You talk about among the greatest to ever play, Travis Kelce. What makes him so difficult as a tight end, having played that position in the NFL?
Yeah, it's funny, man. I spent a lot of time studying Kelce, especially as I was going to Chicago to, be the one tight end. And so he's impossible to study. You never know what he's going to do. He's supposed to run a shallow, and him and Mahomes are on the same page, and he, starts to shallow and stops, and Mahomes throws it to him right away. And he's supposed to run, a corner, high corner, and he just turns around and runs a curl. And I'm like, dude, what is this guy doing? Like, it's a complete freestyle. But that's what makes him so good, is unpredictability. Obviously, his talent, and he can win on any route for the most part, and he can run any route. Any route a wide receiver can run, he can basically run. But just his, like, you don't know what the heck he's gonna do. Like, he's supposed to do this, and all year they've done this out of this formation, and next thing you know, he does the complete opposite, and it kind of leaves you in the dust. But then, obviously, you're not able to do that if your quarterback doesn't have trust in you. So it just kind of shows the relationship that those guys have. And I mean, it's very, very rare that someone cover Kelsey, straight up without getting the flag thrown or doing something crazy. So his greatness has been unbelievable, and it's been so much fun to watch.
And he doesn't seem like he's changed a bit. I mean, he's dating the most famous person maybe in the world, and he still just, seems relaxed and comfortable, and just he is who he is. And even though, maybe as he's getting older, his skills are starting to diminish a little bit, he's still insanely effective.
Yeah, I mean, when you have hands that are that sure, of almost catching every ball that's in your radius, it's, hard not to be that good.
Yeah, Dallas Goedert. I feel like Dallas, the Eagles tight end, is so underrated in this offense. Nick Sirianni says he's so violent with the football. What do you see from Dallas Goedert? Because all the focus has been on Saquon Barkley and, of course, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. And then, Dallas Goedert is almost like this forgotten piece in that offense.
That's the cool part about the offense. There's so much talent, so many talented guys that you can get the ball to, so many dudes that can win you football games, and that's one of the reasons why this offense is so great. You can't just double team AJ, because you got Devontae and you got Dallas and you got Saquon ready to rock and roll. So the cool thing about Dallas is that I don't think, at least from the being in Tampa and watching, I'm obviously not in the locker room or anything like that, but like, doesn't seem like he gets frustrated or emotional about not getting catches. Dallas is a lot different than Kelsey. His game is way different. Dallas is way more of a Kittle. He's probably one of the closest players to a Kittle that we have, tight end wise, because he's dominant in the run game. Like, you want a tight end to block somebody, you put Dallas in there. You don't have to sub in a bigger guy or bring in an offensive lineman. Like, you can literally run every run play with Dallas. But then on top of that, he can spread out and beat people up in the pass game as well. So yeah, I mean, I never really see him get emotional in a negative way about, like, not getting catches, not getting targets, and that type of stuff. I played under Jason Michael, the tight end coach in Indianapolis, for a year, and he was one of my favorite coaches I've ever been around. So I know Jason is advocating for him and trying to get him the rock as many times as possible. But there's just so many, beasts in that offense that you just got to be patient, and your time will come.
A lot of them are so unselfish. I mean, the Eagles run the ball more than any other team. And, they're passing, fewer than anyone else, but those receivers have been very patient. And I imagine when you do, as a tight end or a receiver, doing all that work, whether it's blocking, running 10 or 20 or 15 yards down the field, only to come back. And if you're not involved early, I imagine mentally that is a difficult challenge, really, when, inside the game, to stay locked in when the ball's not coming your way for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, you want to see how locked in these guys are. Watch what they do when Saquon touches the ball. Every single one of them, doesn't matter what guy it is. If you're on the field, they're either locked up with a defender or they're going to get a defender. Like, when a guy like Saquon touches the ball, you do everything you possibly can to make sure your guy is not the one who tackles him, just because of how special he is. And you really don't got to do much, because Saquon will make everybody miss. And so, yeah, I think they're all bought in. I think they're all dialed in. Like, back in the day, they used to sub in the blocking receiver. They don't really do that much in Philly's offense. That's how dialed in those guys are. Even Devontae, as small as he is, from a size standpoint, he's in there throwing his head in there, blocking people. And it's what makes that, along with the offensive line, it makes that offense so special and so hard to guard.
The big story, or let me rephrase that, one of the big stories this year in the NFL is that the Chiefs are getting all these calls. Watching the game, do you see that, or do you think that is just as Roger Goodell said this week, it's just kind of this thing that's going around on social media, but there's really not much truth to it?
Yeah, I mean, Roger has to protect the brand at all time, at all costs, So I think we all can see, I don't know if it's a discrepancy or what the word is for it, but there are some things that are being missed. I think that's an official thing as a whole. I think there's every game, there's one or two or three or four calls that Probably could have gone the other way, but that's what makes that job so tough and so hard. Everything's happening live, and it's way easier to criticize it when you can replay it 5 or 6 times and you can slow it down the 0.25 speed and all that type of stuff. I'm sure they're doing the best they can. So I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to win and you got to do it however you can.
But do you think it's being favored toward the Chiefs, or do you think it's just calls are being missed everywhere?
I don't know. I think they're getting missed everywhere, honestly. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I think. At the end of the day, beat them. That's all you got to do.
Right. And what do you think it's going to take for the Eagles to win this game? And do you think the Eagles win this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we see a Jalen like we saw against Washington, geez, watch out. There's not any team that could beat, Philly. I mean, the defense has to be able to put pressure on Mahomes. I think, I'll be interested. What I'm going to watch is the interior offensive line for Philly. I know we had a couple guys banged up in the Washington game, and we need both those guys to be able to play, especially with a guy like Chris Jones. I think Chris Jones he's an absolute game wrecker. He's a guy that can completely change the passing game just by himself. You got a double team. He's like a Aaron Donald. Like you got to slide the protection to him. You got to have 4 sets of hands on him. That type of stuff. But we got both teams are gonna have to play a clean game. I think it's gonna be a high scoring game. I think it should be a lot of fun to watch. Kind of like last time when they played in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and the Chiefs have been so good in these one-score games. They've won a record amount in these one-score games. But to have another parade, you talked about it earlier, your favorite memory from that parade, if you still have one. A lot of guys, may not remember anything else other than Jason Kelce, but what is your fondest memory of the parade?
Oh man, fondest. There's so many. I just remember once you got to Center City, you couldn't see the end of people. There's just people everywhere. Thousands and thousands of people. I mean, the Rocky Steps were fun with the speeches, and just being with my tight end group was a blast. I don't know, man. There's not really one. Just the whole. That was my favorite part of the whole Super Bowl was the parade. By far. But I don't know. There's not one thing that really stuck out. Everything. The whole day was it was surreal, and you were kind of like drifting, through the day.
In the moment, do you realize just how impactful and a statement Jason Kelce was making up there, or do you not realize it at the time?
Yeah, I had no clue, because it was kind of loud back where we were, I think, and just
it was loud everywhere.
Yeah, it was loud everywhere. Yeah, he just started going, and then once he was past that 2-minute mark, you're like, what's he actually saying? And you start listening to him, and yeah, it was epic.
Yeah, I mean, and the underdog, hungry dogs run faster mentality. I mean, it is so true about that team. And you're a prime example, like I said, coming out of Florida, undrafted, and doing what you did in that Super Bowl, throwing that touchdown. I mean, that whole team was just so special.
Yeah, everybody played their part. Next man up when someone got hurt, and when you were in, you did your job to the best of your ability.
Well, Trey, thank you so much for taking the time. It was really great catching up and talking to you. And, you had such a memorable moment in that Super Bowl and a big reason why the Eagles won the Super Bowl that year, even though, I feel like Nick's getting all the, getting all the credit, but hey, you have that ring and, it's why it's the greatest team sport in the world.
Thanks, brother. Go Birds.